I hope everyone is keeping safe. Everybody is wearing masks. Everybody is keeping social distancing. Everybody is taking care of the elders because those are the ones which are more likely to have a problem. Everybody should take care to see that they wash their hands. Everybody must make sure that their habits are not bad. No eating pan, no chewing tobacco. Anyway, tobacco is bad for health, so you shouldn't take it even otherwise. But all these things are needed if you don't want to spread coronavirus, and you should not be responsible for spreading it. Yes, the problems as far as the coronavirus is concerned is huge and debilitating. It has created a problem unprecedented in the annals of our world and in our lifetimes. I have never seen something which is as debilitating as this. Anyway, we have to congratulate our Prime Minister for the wonderful work he has done in terms of locking out country in order to see that the lives are saved. Jaan ko to bacha diya. And we are very, really grateful to him because in many countries of the world, you must have seen that lives have just been lost tremendously. And looking at the congestion of our population and the size of our population, the number of deaths would have been not be very difficult to swallow. Anyway, unfortunately, the worst is not behind us. We still have to see a lot more problems which will happen in the next month, and we have to be mentally ready. However, we are very, very grateful to the government that they have decided to phase-wise lift the lockout. The first phase in terms of doing it has been in terms of the monsoon works, whichever are taking place in the various areas. Those have already been permitted. We are hoping that at the next stage, of course, those are the workers in situ and they don't want travel to take place. The second part is I must congratulate all of you for looking after the workers who are there on the sites. His thanks is communicated right from Mr. Hardeep Puri, whom I had a chance to talk to yesterday also. And he said he complimented the real estate industry for looking after the construction workers who are there in situ and other things. So we are extremely grateful to them for doing whatever it is. What is missing? What is missing is that we do believe that in the areas which are green and yellow, we should have construction permission hopefully by the 2nd. And we are looking forward to that kind of permission to come across, though we don't know what is really going to come. Number two, even in the hot areas, we are looking that at least part of the work should be permitted in a phase-wise manner, where construction workers are there on the sites in situ, and those permissions should be granted. So we do believe that a phase-wise opening up is likely to happen from post-2nd, but it all depends on the final numbers that really come about. The last part is the fiscal stimulus package. Unfortunately, very little of the stimulus package, which we have demanded from NAREDCO and myself from ASSOCHAM, has really come out from the government. We are quite disturbed about it. I'm not happy that the stimulus package has not taken off. And this is something which NAREDCO, ASSOCHAM leadership is taking great interest to see that this must happen. And the other part of this is the liquidity issue. Banks have a huge amount of liquidity, which is almost in excess of 6.9 lakh crores. However, they have kept it in Reserve Bank and not lending it either to real estate or any other businesses. We have demanded from the government that they should give a credit guarantee to the banks for additional funding, at least to the extent of 20% of our existing limits, and for newer schemes on the basis of whatever new lending is taking place. Not for real estate alone, but also for the entire gamut of industry and lending. The other part of it is the question of how much more the stimulus must be. This is big question mark, because people have been talking from 4.5 lakh crores to 16.5 lakh crores. Now, just to give you the perspective of what I'm trying to talk about, almost 2.2 lakh crores are overdue amounts which the government is required to pay to the people. What do I mean by that? IT refunds, GST refunds, VAT refunds, NHAI payments, DISCOM payments, fertilizer subsidies, state government payments for GST and others, and other payments by PSUs have not been made. These all together only amount to 2.2 lakh crores. What we have demanded in ASSOCHAM is that the total stimulus package should be 14 lakh crores. And ASSOCHAM has also concurred with the same figure. As far as the FICCI is concerned, they've asked for 16 lakh crores and 16 lakh crores, and CII, I believe, is given somewhere in the region of 9 lakh crores. Now, if this kind of stimulus package is brought about, it is my belief that the economy will start rotating again. And if the stimulus package is not given, there is going to be a negative turn of the economy, which we are going to see, and that will be difficult to come out of the depression. So we have been representing to the government, both from NAREDCO, ASSOCHAM, and various other agencies, and I've spoken on TV. We have lots of people. Fortunately for us, NITI Aayog now has confirmed that the total amount of stimulus package required by the economy is 10 lakh crores. This has just been given by NITI Aayog. And I think now the stamp of confirmation, because the chairman of NITI Aayog is none other than the Prime Minister himself. So it is my belief that we will get a stimulus package taking off. However, it has been quite delayed, and it quite personally upsets me, because unless this is not announced, the economy is not likely to pick up again. Second, NAREDCO. NAREDCO has been doing a yeoman's job in terms of representing to government, representing to the Prime Minister, to the Housing Minister, to the Finance Minister, various departments of the Government of India, Government of Maharashtra, local authorities, in order to see that the problems of industry are mitigated. We have succeeded in some and failed in some. We are still working on it on a 24/7. In the meantime, and I must thank the officers in Delhi, all the members, managing committee members, vice presidents, all local people who have taken this thing at heart in order to move their respective offers, as well as the drafts of representations made to the central and state governments. We are also making representations to RBI in order to expedite whatever is needed in terms of relief to real estate. We've been able to get 2 representations approved. Number one, that they will give us a delay in terms of completion of the installments by 2 years. Earlier, it was 1 year. In the last report of the Reserve Bank Governor, it is 1 extra year. However, we have been asking for a one-time complete rollover. This has not already come about, but we are looking forward to do it. Today, I'm very excited and happy that we have been able to do. I must give a special mention of Rajan Bandelkar, the entire team in Maharashtra, who have been taking a lot of time and trouble to do it. Mr. Rajesh Goel, Sumit, and the others in Delhi, and Preeti, all of them have been working very hard in order to see that all this activity, online activity, should be continued. The thing today is very, very interesting, because we have now come to the issue of where the legal positions in terms of real estate and the issues which are financially affecting us in terms of how all the issues will be answered. These are done by 3 of our friends who are there, 2 from ELP and Mr. Badbade. We have 3 of the most eminent persons in real estate advisory group and consultancy group who are here with us today. They have been personal friends of mine. Not only that, I have been consulting them from time to time on various issues, and for quite some time, they have been known to me, and I can vouch for their knowledge and professional expertise. And I'm very happy that they've agreed to spare time to come here today. I am glad that all of you are coming in big numbers, so that enthuses all of us as organizers in terms of the type of activity that NAREDCO is doing. And I'm very, very happy that all of you are here today to take it on. I don't know. I can see Mr. Babu has joined. Welcome, sir.
Sir,
Thanks, sir. How are you, sir? Being here together.
Niranjan sir, Chintan would join in another 5 minutes, 1-2 minutes. He is joining, but
Yes.
till then you forgot to mention about Maharashtra Secretariat, the Viresh, Abhijit, and entire team.
Yes, I'm sorry. Abhijit, Viresh, the entire team in Maharashtra has done a fantabulous job, continuing to do so from a day-to-day basis. In fact, I've been talking to them at 10 o'clock at night and 11 o'clock at night also to set up all these systems into place. So sorry, I really did forget. Rajan, thank you for reminding me.
Entire team, Sheetal, Khatija, Sandra, Sangam, everyone.
Yeah. Please give me all the names. I know all of them, but sometimes forget the names to talk about. So please do that on my behalf. Now, the only other thing which remains really is the way forward. It does appear to me that the situation is quite out of control, and I don't think we are really able to fathom our ways. Individual people will have to tighten their belts. We've already tightened it for quite some time. We'll have to continue to further tighten our belts for a short period of time, I think, till this whole thing done. We are trying to work on the issue of liquidity. We are trying to work on demand creation through maybe GST and other cuts. So we are looking forward to all these ideas and thoughts to do it. We have various members of the managing committee here with me. So before we get it started, Rajan, would you like to ask somebody else also to speak? Because I think I've shared whatever I would have liked. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Sir, thank you very much. Thank you very much. The most important is that tomorrow is RERA day. So we would be very fortunate, all our members, we all the time keep on troubling the secretary as well as housing ministry, and we were fortunate enough to have more than 5 RERA chiefs on our panel. The panel was very good, and I believe yesterday you had a governing council meeting of entire RERA committee, wherein tomorrow we might get some good announcement from the secretary as well as the minister. One more thing is that the way it is, the pro-monsoon work is already started. So it shows that now within a week, fortnight, or maximum a month, entire work of real estate construction work would be started. So ministry has requested us, and we were fortunate enough. So we are making a video with RJ Malishka stating that all the precautions, whatever entire staff on the side as well as the people, engineers, senior staff should take precautions. So that video would be ready by today evening, and if possible, tomorrow we will ask Secretary Sir and Minister to unveil the same. Sir, I think you want to say something. Niranjan sir?
No.
Okay. No, I thought you are unmuted, so you want to say something about...
No. Just wanted to...
Sir, Chintan has joined.
Yeah, so Chintan, if you are ready, so you can take it over because you are just joined in. So, or the moment you are ready, you can make a thumbs up. So I will hand it over to you. Yeah. So tomorrow between 3 o'clock, 3 to 5:30, we will have a mega session, and that session would be on WebEx, because as government is not allowing to use Zoom call for their ministries or the officers. So we will have the call on WebEx, and the same would be aired on Facebook Live as well as YouTube and Insta. So majority of the people who cannot get into this WebEx, they can watch live there. And my request to all the members who are attending to circulate to all their people. And Chintan, if you are ready, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Rajan bhai. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Very much.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. Today, for the next kind of hour and a half, we have a legal panel today. We've got 3 legal experts who will be providing us with their views for the next 30 minutes. And after that, we'll open up for Q&A. We have 2 partners from ELP, Economic Law Practice, a very successful law firm. So we have the first one who's part of ELP. We have Akanksha Joshi. She's a partner who focuses on energy and infrastructure, private equity and venture capital, and real estate. And then we have the other partner is Mr. Babu Siva Prakasam. He is the partner who heads banking and finance practice and the real estate practice. We have Mr. Harshad, who I cannot see. I'm not sure if Harshad ji has joined or not. But so
Harshad will be joining. Harshad will be joining in some time.
Sure. So I'll just quickly take 2 minutes and introduce Harshad ji, because I know he had a court hearing, but he will be joining us soon. Harshad ji is the president of the Bar Association for Maharera, and he's also a practicing criminal and civil lawyer. He has more than 21 years of experience. So he will be talking about the RERA piece and how in the current environment for developers like yourself facing RERA deadlines and RERA requirements, how can we work around that? Akanksha and Babu on the other side will be talking about scenarios in terms of what's happening with the current environment in the litigation related to your lenders, buyers, and your suppliers. So with that, without ado, I'll let kind of Akanksha and Babu take over from here, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chintan. Thank you all. Babu here from ELP. I don't know, Dinesh, you have the presentation with you? Can you upload that?
Yes, I have the presentation.
Yeah, please, if you can upload that. Yeah. So what
okay.
So what we propose to do is that probably we will just take you through different stakeholders in this, different players who are all involved in the real estate industry. So probably we thought that we'll just address it by way of the lenders, from the lenders' perspective, what all actions can be taken and precautions that can be taken. And then from the allottees' perspective and the suppliers and of course, RERA authority perspective, RERA, Arshad will handle that session. So basically, from lenders' perspective, what we are saying is that probably the important aspect which always bothers any borrower is that we don't want to get into a situation where it's a event of default situation. So that is what is the proposition, that because once it becomes an event of default EOD, then probably that will trigger the rest of the action, because event of default will result in acceleration of the dues, and then that will result in the recall of the facilities and then taking actions under the SARFAESI or the DRTs or any of those actions. So probably to start with, what we will do is that we will start with what all the precautions what we can take for the lender. So there will be two set of what sort of EOD can happen. Event of default is that one is that we are classifying this EOD into two aspects. One is that event of default under covenant breaches, because there are certain covenants in your loan documents which will result or likely to result in a breach, and which will trigger the event of default, and then because of event of default, acceleration of payment, which will actually result in an enforcement action. So we have to see that what sort of covenant breaches which will likely result in an EOD. So how to prevent that, and then of course there is a payment default. When there is a default in the payment of interest or debt servicing, then that may also result in a event of default situation. So that is what we will cover from the lender's perspective. Of course, from the allottee's perspective, then if the possession is delayed due to any reason, including the disruption of the supply or unavailability of workforce or whatever reason, then what may be the implication, that we will cover. And my colleague Akanksha will cover on the other aspects of workmen and contractors and other aspects. Yeah. So let us move on to the next slide, please. Virish, can you move to the next slide, please? Yeah. So basically what we
I have moved the next slide.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. So basically under the covenant breaches, so what we do is that probably we have to analyze each loan agreements and facility agreements what you have entered into with your set of lenders. So be it bankers, or if it is a FPI, or if it is an ECB set of loans, whatever may be the nature of facilities, you may have to analyze the set of covenants what you have given, and what may be the likely breaches that may happen. So is there any possibility that you can prevent those breaches, or you can just ask for postponement of those breaches because of the, for example, if you say that there is a sales timeline which is there, or sales target which has been a part of a covenant, probably you may have to go and renegotiate with the lender, saying that this sort of sales covenant, whatever has been undertaken 2 years before or a year before, may not be applicable or relevant at this particular point of time. So probably that may have to be renegotiated. So that may be one of the negotiation. So sometimes it may result in the postponement of certain covenants, saying that the covenant testing can be postponed. So it may not be yearly, it cannot be quarterly, it may have to be shifted. The timelines may have to be shifted. So that is one of the covenant probably negotiation that can happen. And similarly, there are certain covenant parameters which are there. Normally, like we see that a sales target has to be achieved within such and such time. That may be a covenant stipulated under the loan agreement. So probably you may have to go back and say that because of the COVID situation and even post-COVID situation, what sort of, whether the timeline is now relevant and whether this needs to be renegotiated, probably that is something which we may have to do. And also Reserve Bank of India, like Niranjan sir has said, that RBI has also given certain relaxations for commercial real estate projects. So the DCCO, the date of commencement or completion of commercial operations. So RBI has issued 2 directions. So one is that they have extended for 12 months. So you can always go and approach that the DCCO, the timeline for completion of the project can be extended by 12 months, and then accordingly the restructuring the amortization schedule or repayment schedule can be restructured. And of course it has to be with reasons, and of course the projections and what will be the likelihood because of this 12 month, what we are foreseeing. And similarly, if you see that even the 12 month is not sufficient, RBI has also given that, probably we'll cover it in the later. I have a separate slide for that. And then, so this is all the covenant breaches. So normally, if there is a likelihood of a covenant breach, so probably you may have to go to, that is what we are seeing with a lot of our clients. So probably a developer or a borrower may have to go back to the banker or the lender and ask them that certain covenants was agreed to in a situation where it was X, and now this is not the same situation. So probably that needs to be renegotiated and the testings have to be postponed or relaxation has to be given. That is one set. And then if there is a payment default that may happen, then we may invoke one of the provisions under the RBI, which is recent moratorium, which has been given 3 months. So probably we are expecting that this, if the extension, the lockdown extension is extended, probably this also may be extended, and probably a financial package may also come from the Reserve Bank of India. But having said that, today, as on today, we are only sitting with a 3-month moratorium. And at times we are seeing that some clients, some DSRA is given. So it is a debt service reserve account, which is mostly in the form of a interest payment. For interest payment, normally a 3-month or a 6-month interest payment is kept in the form of a fixed deposit, which is utilized for repayment. So there are many cases now we are requesting the bankers to, because there is a complete liquidity crunch, cash flow crunch. So we are advising some clients to go and approach the bankers or the lenders to adjust this maybe after the moratorium, if there is a moratorium passes. So even post-COVID also, if the moratorium is not extended, probably this is one of the tools you can exercise and ask them that you can please adjust the DSRA, and probably we'll replenish the DSRA after some point of time there. And if there is a cure period available, then probably we have to explore in both the covenant breaches and in the payment default, whether within the cure period, whether something can be rectified, but which looks remote because given the timeline and the constraints what we are facing, that cure period may not be of much use, because that was normally a 15-day or a 30-day time period. That's what normally prescribed. Yeah, Viresh, please, we can move to the next one. So like I was saying that the Reserve Bank of India in its circular, March 27, 2020 circular, when it announced the moratorium, so it has announced the extension of the repayment period by extension of 3 months. So the entire tenor gets postponed by 3 months for the repayment if it is a term loan facility, and similarly if it is a overdraft or cash credit facilities. So that also gets the servicing it will be get extended. So there was little bit of concern when the press note came because it was not covering the interest payment, and later on the circular or notification clarified that it includes interest payment also. But having said that, there is concern still remains that because all the interest which is accumulated after this period, maybe 3 months or whatever the timeline RBI extends, so that gets accumulated and there is no clarity whether it has to be paid, because as of now it looks like it has to be paid immediately. So on the 4th month we have to pay. So that itself also will put tremendous pressure because there's all the accumulated interest have to be paid in one go, or it is equated into few installments and the installments are extended by 3 months. Still, that will also put a lot of pressure on the borrower. So that's something that clarification we may have to ask for from the Reserve Bank of India to give it, saying that the accumulated interest also needs to be postponed once everything gets normalized. The repayment schedules are, of course, are rescheduled. The repayment schedules are getting rescheduled and it's extended by 3 more months. And the drawing power also limit also will be recalculated. So that will help in the cash credit facilities. And the civil reporting and the classification, asset classifications are all postponed. So that will help in at least not treating it as a restructuring or an NPA situation if something is not happening because of COVID. The situation before COVID is there, so that may probably will continue. And that is what one of the, some of the cases also, some High Court decisions also reiterate. Yeah, Viresh, you can go to the next one. So like we were discussing that these are all the few RBI measures, what RBI has given certain measures. So this is not actually pertaining to COVID, because even pre-COVID also they announced it somewhere in February 27, 20 only, that extending the deferment up to 1 year of date of commencement of commercial operations, the completion of commercial operations, which is actually the completion of the project in our scenario. So they are saying that by 1 year it can be extended, and it can be continued to be extended for one more year and be treated as a standard asset and will not be treated as a restructuring, provided we have to go and sit with the lender, particular lender, and give the reasoning that because it should be reasons beyond the control of the promoter. So that is something, one of the criteria. So probably we have to establish that what is the reason beyond the control of the promoter. For example, COVID is one example for sure. So there is no clarity whether now the 1 year what RBI has announced is now further will be extended by this 3-month moratorium or whatever moratorium RBI is going to give. So whether it will be 1 year plus 3 months or it will be subsumed within that 1 year, that clarity is not there. Probably it will come up post when all this everything stabilizes. But that is one of the clarity we are all waiting for RBI to come with. Virej, we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so continuing with the same DCCO deferment, so RBI has also said that the NPA classification, like I said, if it is already there prior to the DCCO and not because of DCCO, probably that will continue, and also the extension will be to the satisfaction of the bank and also based on restructuring plan which is being proposed by the borrower. And other aspects of restructuring, only the repayment schedule can be restructured, but other aspects of restructuring like income recognition, asset classification, all these things will continue post till the implementation, during the implementation, and RERA also should be complied with. Recently, post COVID, in April 17-20, RBI has extended these guidelines for even NBFCs as well. Earlier, it was only for the banks, so now they have extended for NBFCs as well. Next, Savresh. So now what we have discussed so far is that before event of default happens, what sort of precautions we can take by relying on the RBI's moratorium or extending the timeline under the DCCO, or probably negotiate with the covenant breacher, the covenants, so that we can ask them to do the covenant testing later on, or the parameters can be relaxed. So these are all pre-EOD. So God forbid an event of default has happened now. So then what all options a borrower or a developer is left with? So normally the options is that, for example, you have to left with a restructuring. So the recent RBI circular on the prudential norms and the restructuring norms is popularly called as the June 7 circular. So that prescribes the restructuring options. So though it has certain criteria, whether it will be applicable to only a certain set of threshold limits that RBI has prescribed. So despite that, what we are seeing is that many banks, even if some of the borrowers don't fall within that threshold limit, still the banks follow that structure, because that is a broad guidelines within which they can do the restructuring. So many banks adopt that as a broad structure. So the restructuring options as various options which can be utilized. So probably we have another slide where what all restructuring options we can utilize. That is something I will take you through. And of course, wherever cases where you don't want to continue with that particular lender, probably we may have to see that whether any out-of-court settlement is possible pre-SARFAESI or pre-DRT or any challenge. And of course, all of us have to be prepared what sort of grounds or challenge we may have to be prepared with, because every ground what we are creating, every communication what we are going to do during this time will be the ground for all the times to come till the account gets settled. So that will be very critical. So we need to raise all the objections and what sort of representations we may have to make. All those things we may have to be careful in dealing with the communication. And in certain cases, probably we may have to go for protective action by way of taking an injunctions or reliefs or filing caveats and all those stuff. So maybe sometimes it's as an industry or a forum together, probably we may have to approach court and ask for certain relaxations or certain injunctive reliefs. So that is something we may have to do once the EOD or likely EOD may result in. Varesh, please, next slide. Yeah. So normally all of us may be aware that what sort of before this. One slide before, yeah. Viresh, you have to go one slide before. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. So normally what sort of action a lender more likely to take is that, first is that, like I was discussing, that under the June 7, 2019 circular, which actually subsumes all the previous circular. So previously, whatever the CDR mechanism, SDR mechanism, everything now gets subsumed under it. So it has become a free, clear way where the restructuring can happen. So that is something under the RBI framework. It can be by way of a change in the management, or it may be by way of one-time settlement. It can be restructuring of any of the terms and conditions, including the repayment schedules. It can be, so it's all these things are called as restructuring, and it adds its own implications because there will be provisioning norms and asset classification norms for that. So probably we may have to invoke that, because before we enter into a dispute situation or get into a court settlement process or an enforcement option, maybe it is always advisable to invoke this and try to do a restructuring as long as possible. Like Niranjan sir said that there is a representation before Reserve Bank of India for a separate package or a restructuring package, or allowing commercial real estate to get into give them one-time restructuring for all industry, so that there is a one-time restructuring can be done because of the complete change in the real estate sector's performance. So that is one option. So God forbid that, suppose that restructuring option doesn't work, and there are because under the framework you have to get the 75% of the lenders also to agree. So sometimes that doesn't work. So probably then some of the lenders are going.
नहीं मेरे thought process में था pen down करने के पहले किसी और ने pen down कर दिया.
So if so suppose that doesn't work, then if some of the lenders choose
to
take an SARFAESI action or any enforcement action, so probably if it is an asset secured to a particular lender, so probably they will invoke the SARFAESI, and which is the very common proper procedure for a real estate sector. So SARFAESI action is very common because many times there will be a particular asset or a particular project secured to a set of lender. So they may invoke it. That is one action. Or they may go and file a DRT procedure. So they will file an application before DRT and ask, go ahead with the enforcement of the debt. Or sometimes they invoke the IBC process, so which is insolvency of the corporate debtor. So that also is another option which may likely to be enforced by a lender. And similarly, now the allottees are also given a financial creditor status. So probably a allottee can also invoke it, but there are certain amendments. So we will deal with that later on. So then also the pledge of, if there is any pledge of shares be given by a borrower, then probably a lender can invoke that pledge, which is under the Contract Act. So it is completely without the intervention of the court. The process can be initiated separately. So, but very unlikely in a case of a real estate sector, because normally listed shares may not be offered as a security. So probably the SPV, the shares of the SPV which has undertaken the project is offered as a security. So because the difficulty is because it's not being listed and the valuation difficulty and all these things are there, it is not a recourse. This recourse is very rarely taken or adopted in case of a real estate sector. But these are all the options. So if any of these actions are proposed or being proposed or taken by the lenders, probably what we can do as a borrower is that probably we have to say under the SARFAESI action, there is a separate provision under section 13(3)(a) where you have to raise objections, you can make representations. These are very, very critical and important. Why? Because we have seen in some cases where we are representing not for a real estate sector, but in other sectors, this came very handy in agitating before the courts, because if we raise the objections and representations on time, then the courts are ready to listen to that and see that whether the objections and the representations are valid, genuine, and then the courts are inclined to give the whatever injunctive reliefs or some reliefs. If no objections or representations are made on time, the courts probably look at those situations and say that you are sleeping over your rights and not taking any actions. Probably it is all invented at this point of time. So probably this is very critical. We have to raise our objections and representations on time. And of course, we can submit restructuring proposals. We can submit one-time proposals. And of course, we have to start building our grounds to challenge those actions. And like we discussed earlier also, that injunctive reliefs and filing caveats are also other. Is there, if there is any non-financial creditor or even a financial creditor allottees invoking an IBC, then probably which will trigger a moratorium, then probably a lender individually cannot take an action under the SARFAESI or a DRT. That may be a comfort or that may be a solace. But having said that, there will be a moratorium, and of course it has its own implication that section 29A will come in so that the promoter can no longer be a bidder or a resolution applicant. Of course, the IBC is a vast subject. So probably, but before it goes into a resolution plan, probably if there is a settlement possible, we can explore that as well. And if it actually goes into a court, obviously we should be prepared to enter appearance and then start filing our objections. And if appeal is possible, then we have to go on appeal provisions wherever possible. Virish, now we can go to the next slide. So I will deal with a little bit on the IBC. What are all relaxations which has been given under the IBC? So now IBC first relaxation is that earlier it was 1 lakh was the threshold limit. So now they have extended this 1 lakh to 1 crore. That itself was also a big relief, especially because small projects from a threat from allottees or from operational creditors actually now suddenly now, because even a 1 lakh outstanding limit, someone can initiate it and it actually adds a lot of pain value to it, because we have to handle that. Either you have to settle it or you have to see how it can be withdrawn. So now that threshold limit has been enhanced, so that itself gives a lot of relief. And similarly, because of due to COVID also, there is a proposal that this suspension of any filing of any application under section 7, 9 or 10, which is actually an application filed by an operational creditor or a financial creditor or filed by the corporate debtor or the borrower or a developer himself. All these things are, there is a proposal that it will be extended for 6 months and to a maximum of 1 year. The ordinance is waiting for President's assent. It can come out anytime. So that also will be a relief, so that at least all of us can concentrate on business rather than having to deal with these sort of issues. Viresh, we can move to the next slide. So this, we have already said that the 6 to 12 month, it will be impact on the customer sentiments and it will give some space for us. So I think we can move to this. This already we have discussed. Next slide. Yeah, so and also that this is another provision that which already there's an amendment has come. So somewhere in March 13 to 2020, because the financial inclusion of the allottees as a financial creditors, we have also been there in some of the cases where we are handling the IBC cases where in the real estate sector. So we could see that these cases could never get resolved because of the completely different goals or perspectives between allottee and a developer, because the goal of a home buyer is very simple. He wants his home and he wants the home within a particular time limit. But for a developer, it's a larger picture, larger perspective. So putting them as a financial creditor and giving them the same sort of weightage as a weightage to vote actually created and disrupted many of the IBC process. So that is something which as a representation was there before the government, and probably considering all those, the government came with this amendment saying that at least 100 allottees or a minimum 10% of the allottees can only invoke it, because any allottees in single allottee invoking the process, someone who is just a little bit agitated or has his own agenda taking entire project into putting at stake. So that to prevent that, this was initiated. But having said that, unfortunately now it's stuck in the Supreme Court. So Supreme Court has given a status quo. So we are all waiting for that, whether Supreme Court is going to relax and do something, or it is that's it. So I think you can go ahead as Viresh. I think that's it. I think I have. Viresh, you can move to that, and then I can hand over to Akanksha. Akanksha can deal with little bit on the workman perspective and the suppliers perspective.
Yeah, hi, Babu. Sorry, 1 second. I think Akanksha, before you join in, I think we have Harshad ji who's joined in from the court. So I think in just to kind of in the interest of time, if we can let him kind of jump in for the next 10-15 minutes before we can start again, please.
Perfect.
Yeah. Harshad ji?
Yeah, hi, Ethan. Can you hear me?
Yes, Harshad ji, we can hear you. Sorry to pull you out of your high court hearing.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Chintan. Thank you, Mr. Babu, for accommodating me.
Please
good afternoon,
Rajan.
Arshad,
little louder. Arshad, little louder.
Yeah, good afternoon, Rajan. Good afternoon, Niranjan Bhai. Good afternoon, everyone who are attending this webinar. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this webinar. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes. So first of all, once again, thank you very much. So today's topic, as I can see, very well described by Mr. Babu already. So the legal impact of COVID-19. Now, I need not take you through what is happening around in India because of COVID-19. To cut short this thing, today we can see that the work is stopped. India is not working. The projects are stalled. So first and foremost failure which I see from the prospect of RERA is as you all are aware, that ongoing projects as well as the projects which were new when the RERA came were required to be registered under Section 3 of RERA Act. Now, while registering the project, one of the necessary and important aspect was to give the date of completion of the project, as well as the undertaking was required to be given that on this particular date, the project will be completed. Also, in the draft agreement or the agreement for sale which we enter into with the allottees, the promoter was required to give the date on which the possession was to be handed over. Now, because of COVID-19 situation, the first thing I see is probably there will be delay on the part of promoters to hand over the possession. Now, we will have to look at this situation from two angles. One, from the angle of promoter, where genuinely for no fault of his, there is a failure on his part to deliver the possession on the time promised. This is one aspect of it. The second aspect, we will have to look at it from the angle of allottee, how he will take that delay in handing over possession. So first, as I said, section 6 would come into picture, where if the project is not completed within stipulated time, the authority will have to, whether it depends on the authority, whether it extends the project or not. So I think first and foremost, under the heading of force majeure, we'll have to include the COVID-19, or some provision will have to be made where this particular situation is treated as force majeure under Real Estate Regulation Act. Now, having treated that, it may give breathing period. I've seen quite a few seminars, webinars of NAREDCO, where they have been constantly following it up, rightly so, with the government to give automatic extension to the project already registered on the date which is already disclosed for completion of the project. So I think section 6 will be triggered, and the government will have to come here and grant extension to the project, maybe 6 months to 1 year period for the completion of the project. Now, we will have to look at it from the angle of the allottee as well, because when we consider litigation, we have to see that the allottee is equally affected by COVID-19 situation. Mr. Babu pointed out that there is a moratorium period which has been given to the allottee for repayment of the loan or the installments. But 3 months, in my personal thinking, would not be sufficient enough for allottee also to recover from the effect of COVID-19. And some more period is required to be given, because there are two things which I contemplate here. That, like, first I must point out, like under Insolvency Act, the government has proposed that certain period will be for certain period no complaints will be entertained. But under RERA there will be two situations. One where, as I said, the allottee wants to exit not only because the project is delayed, but because of COVID-19 situation, he may not be in financial status to fulfill the commitments which he has done to the developer or the promoter. And in that case, he may wish to exit from the project. This is one scenario which we will have to take into consideration, because while talking to some of the promoters and discussing this issue, they said whether the allottee would take that hit of 10% which is mentioned in the agreement, or maybe the registration and stamp duty charges. Well, I'm afraid when you don't have money to make the necessary payments, the little choices are there with the allottee to consider the hit which he is going to take. And in that case, he will move the RERA court for seeking exit from the project. So this is one concern where he will express his inability to make the payments for not only installments, but the future payments for required for the project. This is one aspect I would request the NAREDCO committee to take into consideration, because they have been representing on behalf of promoters. I think some representation on behalf of allottees is also required, and that extension of moratorium period of 3 months needs to be extended so that this type of litigation can be controlled. Second aspect I think we will have to consider is redefining, or maybe for some extent introducing something to define that non-performing assets, because 3 months failure amounts to 3 consecutive failures in repayment of debt amounts to non-performing assets, which automatically triggers SARFAESI Act. Now, this also we will have to see from the aspect where the allottee has taken a loan, or for that instance, a promoter has taken a loan or finance to the project. And because of COVID-19 situation, he is not able to pay the interest or the installment for next 3 months or 6 months consecutively, of course. There is every likelihood that SARFAESI Act would be triggered against the promoter, and which may not be in the interest of the project at all, considering that on one hand, bank is trying to take its money back and the promoter is trying to complete the project with, again, as I said, allotee not being in a position to make immediate payments of installments after COVID-19 situation. Now, so one more aspect I think we will have to consider in respect of litigation when it comes to litigation post COVID-19 situation is there are certain projects which are stalled or which were not in a position to get completed on or before 31st December 2019, or rather before this COVID-19 situation, immediate before the COVID-19 situation arose. Now, how those situations, whether Section 7 and Section 8 proceedings, which are already initiated by the authority in respect of those projects, needs to be stalled, because that will also have an impact overall on the market situation. And also when we are thinking about the litigation prospect, or rather post COVID-19, one of the important situations which we'll have to take into consideration, of course, thanks to government, as I said, has stalled fresh complaints as far as NCLT is concerned. I believe NAREDCO is taking efforts to bring in similar notification or regulation in respect of RERA as well. So of course, Niranjan Bhai and Rajan will put light on that. The second aspect, as I pointed out, there has to be an effort to give that breathing period to customer allotee as well, because ultimately I think he is equally sufferer of COVID-19 situation. Now, one of the important aspect of post-COVID situation is there may be, hello. Yeah. So post-COVID-19, possibility of government introducing certain norms in respect of carrying out even work on the project side, maintaining social distance or maintaining certain distance, that may even add to delay. That will have to be considered whether that can be a ground for extension of time, because that this COVID-19 is not likely to go immediately. So that I think the norms in respect of workers, and also as we can see from the situation that many of the workers have left Bombay and have gone back. So again, gathering them back to and starting work of the project itself is likely to take some more time. So as I said, Section 6 extension would be very relevant at this point of time. One of the other aspects I think which requires legal consideration post-COVID situation for the promoters is I think the laws in respect of, as I said, recovery of debts, because that is going to play a vital role for both the promoter as well as the allottees. The situation may probably be there where the bank on one hand is going after the allottee for a repayment of his installments, and on the other hand against the promoter for having not completed the project, or maybe for not completing the project on the date promised. So that would be a relevant to consider, that what government can help to this sector by introducing some resolution or amendment to the particular act. I think we'll have to work on that situation as well. Chintan, thank you very much for getting me in between Mr. Babu. Thank you once again, everyone. And Viresh, you can.
Thank you, Arshad ji. Appreciate that. I know you're in court, so I'll, we'll have to kind of.
No, I'm really sorry. My matter is getting called out, so I was a little worried.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Akanksha, do you want to kind of take this up?
Harshad, 1 second.
Chintan,
1 second. Harshad, Harshad,
Yeah.
you be online only because there will be question answers later.
Yes, I'm online. I'll just attend this matter. It's matter of 10 minutes. I'll come back and I'll attend everything.
Okay.
Thank you very much
Whenever
once again,
you
everyone, for
come,
accommodating me.
whenever you come, you switch on your video so we know you are there.
Yes.
Till then, you can switch it off.
Yes, thank you very much once again, everyone. And sorry, I have to go in this manner.
No, Harshad, it's absolutely fine.
Thank you.
Chintan.
Yes,
Chintan, over to you.
Yeah, so thank you. Akanksha, if you want to quickly take up, in the next 5 minutes, because there are a bunch of questions, and I think in the interest of time, I think there are a lot of listeners who want to ask questions to you guys. So if you want to take up the next 5-7 minutes, please.
Sure, Chandan. Thank you. And I think both Babu and Harshad have very nicely encapsulated the issues from the perspective of the lenders and under RERA. My attempt in these next 5 minutes is just to quickly go through certain other issues that could come up, which could, lead to dispute situations or, certain ambiguities. And I'm going to base this on 3 specific heads. One is, of course, the employees, and there's been a panic that has been created because of, the government of India and certain state governments' notifications about the employees and workmen. The second relates to contractors and your construction contracts because of the whole issue around force majeure coming in. And the third issue, which I will very briefly touch upon, is issues around commercial rentals, because a lot of our clients are facing situations where notices have been sent where they've been asking for rent waivers, etc., on the basis of a force majeure provision, which may or may not be in the contract. So very quickly, when I'm speaking on the employees and labor issue, on March 29, 2020, there was an order from the Ministry of Home Affairs that said that payment of wages has to be made to all workers without any deduction. And this was preceded, at least in the state of Maharashtra, by a direction which said, it was termed as an advisory, saying that no employees should be paid in full as if they were on paid leave, and services could not be terminated of anyone. And the problem, of course, is that there are no revenues, there is no work being done, and wages as such, the way it's been defined under legislation, is that it is for payment which is being made for work being done. And if there's no work being done, is there really a need to pay or a requirement to pay wages? So given all of this, there has been a challenge currently, which is at the Supreme Court, where certain private enterprises are challenging this and saying that these are completely dehors the Industrial Disputes Act, these are unconstitutional, etc., and would also cause a great amount of hardship to industry as a whole. And of course, the real estate sector, which has to employ so many different workers, which include migrant workers, these issues also are quite live. From the way that we've read it, the language as such seems to indicate that it is, at least the central government order seems to only apply to those people who are termed as workmen, and for employees, etc., there could be settlements. However, from a legal perspective, when we are looking at it from the Industrial Disputes Act, there are certain options that are there, which you could look at, which include, layoffs, retrenchments, etc., which I don't want to get into too much detail around. We believe that the challenge in the Supreme Court will get some clarity in the next 2 weeks. The second thing I want to quickly touch upon is your construction contracts, and the whole debate, and I think there's more than enough written in the press, and you may have attended many webinars about whether force majeure, whether the COVID-19 is a force majeure or not. This of course turns on the phrase of your contract and whether it is really covered specifically. If it's not covered specifically, can it be a natural calamity? And do we really refer to that, or do we refer to the government orders which specify that there has been a lockdown? So the reason this is important is that the timing of the force majeure depends on the notification, and whether the notification is triggered, whether the contract is making a notification because of disease itself, or afterwards when the Government of India notification came in. That is really where the answer lies. And now in a lot of areas in the country, construction activities are permitted. Of course, in large cities, urban areas, municipal areas, this is not permitted. But when we're looking specifically at rural areas where, they are saying that, yes, you can go ahead and construct, there still are labor shortages, material shortages, and those issues that have not been done away with. So the issue then remains is whether it would still continue to be a force majeure. Can you really, require your contractors to continue construction? So those issues will be something that we'll be seeing in the next couple of weeks, and we need to examine that. And lastly, just wanted to touch very, very briefly upon the issues around commercial rentals, where especially in malls and restaurants and those kind of places where there has been no revenues due to shutdowns, a lot of lessees and licensees are stating that they cannot really be held to obligations of payment. They cite frustration and they cite force majeure. The first thing, of course, I'd like to say is that unless force majeure has been provided for in a contract, you cannot claim force majeure. Force majeure is purely a creature of contract. If you want to claim frustration, that also becomes difficult because, there needs to be a permanent inability in order to claim frustration, and which is not the case over here. Mere commercial hardship, the fact that, the revenues have gone down, etc., is not a good enough ground, and there's enough case law which says that. One interesting thing that I'd like to just put forth is not in India, but in the state, in the country of Hong Kong, there was a case of, lease tenancy where the tenant wanted to terminate the lease on the basis that that block of flats was isolated during the SARS epidemic for about 10 days. And he said that since that would cause a frustration, he could not occupy those premises for 10 days. He really wanted the ability to walk out of that lease. The Court of Hong Kong said that this was a temporary issue, and that he would still be able to enjoy it for the major part of the lease. And hence, they held that frustration would not really ensue. And of course, the best thing about this is that the Hong Kong court's judgment, although not can also be said to be persuasive. So I would just want to end here because of the 5 minutes. I think I've taken up the time, and I will just pass on to Chintan again.
Thanks, Akanksha. Appreciate it. Rajan bhai, over to you with the questions that the management has before I move to audience questions.
Thank you, Chintan. Thank you. Thank you, Akanksha. Thank you, Babu. And thank you, Harshad also. Harshad once again is there. I think the majority of the people would like to ask question to Harshad. We have our President-elect, Mr. Ashok Monani. Ashok Monani, if you have any question to ask any panelist, you can go through.
Yeah,
Ashok, so, please unmute your mic.
Yes, can you hear me now? Am I audible?
Can you hear
Ashokji, please go ahead.
Yeah, so my question is twofold. A,
you're still on mute only.
No, they can hear. They can hear. Hello? You can hear, right?
Yeah, very much.
Your voice
yes, you're audible. Yeah, please.
Yes.
Rajan, you have to mute your phone.
Ashokji,
so
please.
This is, well, yeah. This is for developers who have taken redevelopment of projects.
Yeah.
So what happens as far as their responsibility to pay rent is concerned? Despite the fact that their intentions are to continue the construction, they are unable to construct because of the prevailing circumstances. There is a force majeure clause also in the agreement. But however, the society, the members generally insist that the rent should be paid during this period. I mean, it is not only the lockdown period, but the impact is much more. The impact could go on for at least 2 to 3 quarters, even post-lockdown. So we need to ask the panelists on this August gathering, that what would your advice be to developers as well as to the members who are existing there, who are staying there? What should be the approach as far as the rent is concerned? The second question would be that it's more related to RERA, as UP and Haryana have been, magnanimous enough to pass orders wherein 40%, whereas the 40% work is completed, they will not entertain cases for refund. That means Section 18 and Section 19(4) would have to be kind of amended, not only in Maharashtra, but pan-India, they should take into consideration. These are the two aspects as far as developer and consumer is concerned. So please, your views.
So for the rentals, probably I'll just Mr. Arshad can answer on both the aspects. So probably on the rentals, what we are seeing is that, of course, there is a possibility that because like Akanksha also said that Akanksha can substantiate that. So whether you have to invoke the force majeure or you are invoking the frustration or any of those, so normally that will result in a termination of a contract or termination of an obligation. But here is a peculiar situation where it is actually a suspension of an obligation rather than a termination of an obligation. So probably what is happening is that, yes, every party who is agreed by this probably invoke this force majeure or a frustration as a plea and try to come back to a renegotiation table, because that is how both the parties have to sit and renegotiate and renegotiate the contract and see that whether they can postpone each of their performance to some point of time, so that it becomes a reality, because performance has to be realistic. And sometimes the performance are not available because, like Akanksha said that, so there are a lot of judgments and also views that, because this is a very peculiar situation for sure. So we don't have much case laws, it's unprecedented. So it is difficult whether this is sort of pandemic across globe. Not very lot of case laws and precedents are there. So it is unique in that sense. But having said that, the sensible approach is always a renegotiation to create that bringing the people to negotiation table. Probably someone has to invoke any of those, either a frustration or a force majeure, and bring that. So Akanksha, if you can just substantiate anything more you want to add.
So just to add a couple of things to this. One is, of course, as I had said earlier, it really depends on the terms of the contract. Secondly, when you're looking at an arrangement between a developer and a society, it's on a lease and not a license basis. So let's say that your leasee doesn't have a force majeure clause. So then what would you do? So in the Transfer Property Act itself, there is a provision which says that if any land or any immovable property is, wholly or substantially damaged or permanently, become unfit for use, in such a situation, the lessee has the option to avoid the lease. So this doesn't really help us because, firstly, there is no destruction, and secondly, it's at the option of the lessee, which could be you. Here, the primary difficulty here is that there is no, effect to the physical structure or to the physical, property itself. Which is why really you have to go as per your force majeure clause and see, you could possibly look at clauses which talk about what is the purpose of the lease. And if the purpose of the lease very specifically is, building a particular building or doing some construction in a manner which is affected by this event, then, you could try and get some kind of relief around that. But it is very dependent on the terms of your lease.
Just to clarify, Akanksha, there is no lease agreement. It's a development agreement.
Development agreement, okay.
Yeah. So in the development agreement, the force majeure clause is there, but right. It was never so vast. Okay, it was a general force majeure. Act of God is mentioned at the most. Now, will this be considered an act of God?
So there is some argument to calling it an act of God, because the government of India, the Ministry of Finance, has issued a notification. It's an office memorandum really only for the central government entities who have procured goods, where they've said that, because of this, supply chain disruptions, etc., you can consider this as a force majeure, but you'll have to prove the causation, which I think we can clearly do. The only technical thing is that it is only for the government entities. It's not, of general applicability. But we can at least find some measure of argument that, the government itself is considering it as a force majeure, and there definitely is a great amount of difficulty today. The second thing is that when you look at definitions of act of God, it's not defined in any act, but there are judicial decisions which say that it is an event of force, which is a natural event and which is without any human intervention. So then you get into whether COVID-19 has been because of any human intervention, was it spread because of human intervention or not? So these are the kind of sort of technical niggling arguments that could come up. But, of course, we would say that, yes, it's not, a disease is not something that was caused by a human being. And the spread, of course, is something that we have we have very little control over. So that is the ground we would take.
Yeah, and as suggested earlier, that we are not interested in applying the doctrine of frustration, because we don't want to terminate the contract.
You certainly don't want to.
Yeah, the work is 70-80% complete, and we would like to complete the project.
Right.
This is a temporary phase for which we would seek relief.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. And about RERA, I think we'll ask Harshad when he joins us back.
So one more point, sir. So when you are speaking about redevelopment, so one more issue which may come is that probably a developer has to give an alternate accommodation or continue to pay the lease rentals for the existing set of tenants. So that is, that will also be that also is an issue, because whether we will continue to pay that, because that's an obligation which we have committed when we took over the project. So whether that obligation can be fulfilled during this time.
That was the moot question, that during this period of crisis, how do we fulfill that obligation of ours as a developer?
No, so the fair question. So definitely, probably we also have to take that plea as a developer. Probably my obligation also needs to be postponed till this situation is lifted or comes to normalcy. Probably that is a plea we may have to take. So once again, it will always boil down to a renegotiation, and at times it goes to a court. Probably it is very difficult situation, because the courts are pro tenants, and then they will say that you may have to continue to perform the obligations. Of course, once again, I'm giving a personal view. So probably the court may say that you may have to continue to perform the obligation if there is an extension which has been given by Reserve Bank of India or the RERA authority under RERA. Everywhere you are getting that extension, probably that is something which we may have to continue with that. Yes, on the one hand, you are forced to continue to pay the workman's dues and forced to continue to pay the rentals, and where there is no cash flow or no, you are not able to even perform here. So it's a little bit an equity issue. So the court may have to look at the equity more on a contractual issue, because the court may have to dwell into that and say that under equity, is it possible to burden one set of party to perform their obligation while the other set of parties are completely discharged or not even able to perform the obligation. So it's all depends on how we portray, and of course the specific case where we can portray and see that where is actually the difficulty. But yes, there is a valid point and valid ground to argue this.
Okay, thank you, Babu. Harshad, if you want to answer the RERA question
a couple of things. I agree with Babu that there will have to be renegotiations in respect of contract. Ashok bhai, let me just first quickly summarize your question. See, the situation here is the society member who has handed over his a particular building or plot of land for redevelopment is staying in a separate apartment, and he is already paying rent there. Therefore, COVID-19 situation has not really affected his possession of that rental premises. So actually he will have to continue paying the rent. Now, keeping this in mind, we are aware that in last couple of months, because of COVID-19, various state government as well as other governments have issued directions not to insist upon particular rent for a particular period. Or we will have to see whether in such circumstances, whether the society member has really borne that particular rent for that period, or he was also exempted by the concerned landlord for this particular period. Therefore, when I said I agree with Babu, while renegotiating on the table, all these factual aspects will come into picture. Whether actual rent was collected, from the landlord in respect of that particular premises, whether commercial, residential, who is under an obligation with you. Now, second aspect, as sir asked, whether 40% work completed, the complaint should not be entertained. Now, I would go as, yeah, so I got your point, but the point here, Ashok bhai, you will agree, irrespective of percentage of work, the fact remains that because of COVID-19, the industry is going to suffer for, as you rightly said, next 3 to 6 months. So whether I am at the initial stage where I have just received a permission, or where I have crossed 40%, but still I am unable to complete the project, at both the occasions, the promoter builder is at loss because of this COVID-19. Therefore, in my considered opinion, instead of making 40% or any percentage as a necessity for consideration of exemption, if the government considers granting protection to each and every project for a period of 6 months, considering this as a force majeure. Now, why I say force majeure, especially under RERA, if we will have to consider this, that under RERA, section 6 defines force majeure. Now, it includes any calamity as well. Now, we must appreciate that government on this particular situation has already invoked Disaster Management Act. It's already acting under that. So I hardly have any doubts that somebody can argue that this was not a calamity, whether it was God's act or it's irrelevant, it's a calamity. And it's a situation where admittedly the government has issued directions not to work. And, you know, therefore, I think that protection, which you are saying only to the projects for 40% work completed, I think would be extended to all for a limited period where the actual period of calamity continues. I think that's...
Sorry, I didn't frame the question rightly earlier. This was pre-COVID, okay?
Yeah.
Haryana and UP, that is Mr. Khandelwal as well as Mr. Rajiv Kumar, have passed orders where the intent of the developer was seen. Okay, this is pre-COVID. Okay, where 40% work is complete. Now people generally, the market is corrected. Okay, people want their refund with interest. It's very convenient. You know, stock market is not doing well, real estate is not doing well. So why don't I take my money back with 10.2%, whatever their interest is applicable? So therefore, Haryana as well as UP have been magnanimous enough, have taken have passed orders wherein they do not entertain refunds under section 18 and 19(4), where the intent of the developer is to complete the project. This was my thing, and not about the force majeure. Sorry, I want to reframe myself.
No, now this question would, of course, would go back to 2018, 19. In fact, even those years were not so good for real estate sector. And I quite see what is passing through your mind. So my answer to that is, see, these are the decisions taken by the authority in their respective wisdom. This is not a law. There is no law which has been pronounced or regulation which has been introduced by the government. Yeah. So Ashok bhai, I'll just get connected in 5 minutes. There's a call from High Court. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Hello. Rajan bhai?
We have Rajendra Pate. Rajendra Pate, you would like to ask any questions? Otherwise, Chintan, you can take questions. There are various people have raised their hands.
Yes. So, if Mr. Rajendra Pate wants to ask a question.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My question is that my possession is 4 months away from right now. It will take at least now 6 to 9 months to complete the project. Now, what will be the RERA's perspective on this, and will I have to pay the EMI of the customer? Hello.
Yeah. So sorry, sir. So what is the question? You are saying that your possession is 4 months away because of COVID. Now it's extended.
Now it will. If suppose I started from the 3rd of May. But it will not take now 4 months. It will take more than 6 to 8 months now, because the laborers are gone out of reach now. Then they will come back and the work will start, and it will take a lot of time. I don't know exactly how can I complete the project now, but I have a fear now. Who is going to pay for the customer as well as RERA? what will be the RERA's perspective on this?
Of course, Mr. Arshad will be the right person. But having said that, so what I could say is that RERA already has given the extension by way of 3 months. 3 months time period.
It is not a good period because 3 months is a stipulated time. In that time, I cannot complete the project now.
No, sir, understood. So this is what the provisions as of today. Of course, whether it is correlated with the reality, no. So probably the government we are expecting, be it Reserve Bank of India has also given only 3 months time period, which is not reasonable and which will never be within, even after the 3 months, if everything lockdown is lifted also, bringing back all the workers back, from their whatever, because all the migrants back and the raw material supply back into the same position, it's not going to be easy. So I think probably all these representations are going to both RERA and also Reserve Bank of India. So we are expecting that this timeline will be reasonably extended so that it takes into consideration these aspects as well. So that this will have a two set of impact. Suppose you are a developer and you want to have this extension of the timeline as a developer. So from the RERA perspective and from the borrowing perspective, so that borrowing perspective, RBI will give you a direction and say that the 3 months is extended to 6 months or whatever time period they feel is reasonable. And similarly, RERA will also give you an extension. And the other flip side of it is that if your payment has to come from an allottee, probably the milestone, based on the milestone, whatever you have achieved, you will be able to make a demand. So that will also be postponed because your cash flow is getting postponed because your milestone cannot be achieved. So probably all these things have to be married together. So probably that is where we have to say that why the timeline has to be extended. So RERA will consider for sure because this is a blanket permission they are given.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Babu, we have some more questions. The next question is, does the 2-year extension apply to HFCs also?
So it appears to HFCs as well,
Okay. The next question is, and again, today a lot of discussions are happening around one-time restructuring. Question really is, how would restructuring of regular/standard assets be treated in today's scenario?
No, so the one is that the government, RBI is because all the restructuring will be governed by Reserve Bank of India. So the Reserve Bank of India has already given if the restructuring is happening, because our restructuring is based on two issues. One is that completion of the project, there is a delay. Because of that delay, you need to have a restructuring. So that is one thing. And then there is a cash flow situation. Because of the cash flow, we are not in a position to service the debt. So that will be the second situation. So that already, because of the extension of the timeline for completion of the project, Reserve Bank of India has already given that time. So that is something which we can always take recourse to by 1 year or another extension for 1 more year. So that we can always extend to. But as far as the payment is concerned, maybe till COVID, whatever timeline RBI is extending, it may be 3 months as of today. So probably it may be extended by another 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, we don't know. So if that is there, then we can invoke that as well. So then there is no restructuring in that sense. But after beyond that period, so there is also another talk which is being going on, that whether this restructuring or this sort of concessions which have been relaxations which are giving should be now move away from the generic provisions and move away to a specific sector specific requirements, because certain sectors require special concessions. So I think RBI is looking at it. That is what we understand. So probably they may come with some package or scheme for the real estate sector as well, like they came before pre-COVID, that the DCCO is extended.
Okay. The next question is, can the enhanced limits be applied to cases which are still to be admitted?
I presume this enhanced limit is under the IBC 1 lakh to 1 crore, correct? So this will come into effect on the date of from the date of notification only, which is I think 27th March or something.
Okay. The next question is, if the buyer has made advance payment of less than 10% of sale value for a purchase of new flat, And now to cancel, is the developer liable to refund the amount, and what defenses are available to the developer to protect his cash flows in such situations?
So, of course, we have to go back to the terms of the contract, how the contract is actually been drafted. But having said that, we have enough authorities to show that now a buyer can always terminate a contract. But if the contract stipulates that you can forfeit certain amount, then probably if it is less than 10%, because the 10% is leaves you with a registration of an agreement. So that if it is less than that, definitely under RERA, because RERA requires only an allottee who is having a paid booking amount. So they will be considered as an allottee under RERA for sure. But having said that, whether a buyer can terminate or cancel a contract, cancel a booking, yes, the buyer can always cancel booking. So whether you can forfeit certain amount, it all depends on the terms of the contract. Whatever has been paid has been forfeited. So that to that extent, it can be forfeited.
Okay. And the percentage, what you're saying, Babu, is that the percentage of deposit or the percentage of completion of the project does not matter. It is how your contract is documented is what matters.
Yeah. So in this particular question, what it is saying is that I think probably what they have in mind is that it is less than 10% because there is no contract, because normally there will not be any agreement, because you will enter into an agreement after 10% is paid. So that, and also you enter into an agreement for sale and get it registered. So now you have to see that whether your allotment letter actually is properly drafted and it actually has the clause saying that you have the right of forfeiture, because the booking amount, if it is less than that, and also as you rightly asked, is that if the project has advanced to a stage more than 10% and the buyer is supposed to make further payments because after the booking amount, which is less than 10%, so then there is a breach on the buyer side as well, because he has not performed his obligation. So all this needs to be analyzed and see that, examined, and then we can see that whether it is actually a breach from the buyer side and it is unilaterally they are terminating the contract. So we are entitled to appropriate or forfeit the amount, so that we need to examine it.
Okay. Another question somewhat similar is, assuming that the developer is intending to complete the project and the project is almost 50% complete, but there is now delays because of COVID, the buyer intends to cancel the contract. Is he eligible to file for liquidated damages?
I think I have my own doubt that liquidated damages will be entertained by court in this time for sure, because once again it is beyond the control of the promoter as well. So probably the court will look at that situation and say that it is beyond, because it's a government lockdown, it is a complete sort of curfew, so no work can be done. So probably the court will not entertain a liquidated damages, but the right to terminate a contract is once again will come back to, you have to go to the contract, how the contract is drafted, and say that whether someone can terminate a contract, because that's something which is a bilateral between the buyer and the developer.
Okay. Is Rajan bhai there? Any specific questions we have?
Not really.
Okay, so
not really.
How long? I think there are a couple of RERA related questions specifically for Mr. Harshad, but I think he's going to take slightly longer.
Right.
We can send them the answer later. We can send them the questions to Harshad and Harshad can reply to them.
Perfect, perfect. So I think with that, over to you, Rajan bhai, if we can kind of end the session now.
Yeah, it was a very good session. Chintan, thank you very much for arranging this. And all the panelists, Babu and their colleague, as well as Harshad and people from the fraternity, thank you very much. And one very, very important aspect is that tomorrow we have RERA Day. And according to RERA, MoHUA is going to arrange a webinar. The webinar would be arranged on Cisco WebEx, as well as the same would be streamed live on Facebook as well as YouTube. So people can watch there if they don't get to sneak in here. So stay cool, stay well. stay home, be safe. Thank you very much. Once again, Chintan and entire team, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for giving us an opportunity. And thank you for this. It was quite interactive and very good session. We also learned a lot of things from the field perspective.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Pleasure. Always. And we will share this presentation for the benefit of everyone. And if they have any questions, they can always get in touch.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you for it.